If you're going to make a magocracy, obviously you have to add magic and then put the wizards sniping at each other over petty politics. But how do you make the magocracy memorable? By making the magic memorable. Anybody can just devote a bunch of different wizards to different existing schools and call it a day. That's how you get Netheril or Thay. They're okay, but there's a reason why when most people mention Mystara, the first nation that comes to mind is Glantri. Why? Why? Because Glantrian magic borders on mad science, and it dominates the nation's entire culture and industry, from secret magical sources to uncovering entirely new schools of magic, followed up by turning their great university into an arcane sweatshop, cranking out magic items with the express purpose of selling them. Glantri pushes the boundary on what magocracies even are. I'm Mr. Welch, and this week we are looking at the magics of Glantri. First off, I'm not breaking down the secret crafts or even the Radiance in this video. This is just on the impact of Glantri's research into new magics and how that magic is integrally tied to their culture and economy. Where Alphasia represents the old traditional methods of magical research and spellcasting, Glantri has no restrictions on any type of magic except divine. This gives Glantrians the reputation of being incredibly reckless with their profession, something they can't deny based on past events. From dissecting demi-humans to testing new spells on their neighbors, Glantri's public relations department is one of the toughest jobs in the known world. The first thing you learn about Glantrian wizards is they have a love of the grandiose. Why cast Fireball when you can unleash Deathfire's Rapture? A simple light spell changes into Banish the Dark. Clone becomes Mirror Birth. For whatever reason, Glantrians can't give a spell a mundane name. Their spells tend to be a mouthful due to their love of making everything sound like it needs to be shouted by an overacting British villain. If you're going to introduce a new spell in Glantri, if it doesn't sound like a prog rock album name, you're doing it wrong. The primary reason why Glantri churns out new magics in the first place is pure capitalism. Glantri has almost a monopoly on magic items. They have a large number of stores that do nothing but sell items, not just to other wizards, but other adventurers that come in looking to spend their adventuring profits on new and exciting magic. There is an entire industry of wizards that do nothing but scribe scrolls or brew potions to keep up with the demands of their customers. To ensure repeat business, Glantrian magic items are designed to wear out. Wands can't be recharged. Charges and other items are limited and never replenish. If you wear out your wand of fireballs, it doesn't generate extra charges in the morning. It turns to dust and you have to trek back to Glantri City to get a new one. I'm pretty sure Steve Jobs had a copy of Gazetteer 3 lying around the Apple headquarters somewhere. The prevalence of magic also means common magic items are the household items in the home of Glantrians. House slippers that warm on command might be useless on a dungeon crawl, but for 50 gold pieces you can make sure your toes are never cold in the winter while you research your next spell. Magic replaces the mundane all over the nation when possible. Instead of throwing your trash out, you feed it to a charmed black pudding. An abundant supply of magical prosthesis means there's no need for peg legs or wheelchairs. Now the price might be high, but wizards are always willing to offer discounts for those willing to help with experiments. By being the experiment. Most stores will offer some sort of magical item for sale, unlike nations or settings where buying a magical sword is almost unheard of. Glantri isn't magic heavy, it's magic saturated. Once you get past the fact that normal magical spells are everywhere inside of Glantri, then you start to look at the experimental forms of magic, the ones that aren't taught openly in schools but are hoarded away for use by the nation's power players. Glantri wizards are a vain people. When everybody knows the spell, the wizards showcase their wealth by having numerous trivial items lying around for their comfort. Any merchant can go out and buy a wand of dishwashing, and creating new cantrips is an introductory course at the Great School of Magic. The true power players in Glantri aren't the ones creating new spells, but the ones creating new forms of magic. This is where the secret crafts of Glantri come in. The crafts are a new form of magic, or an expanded form of magical schools that aren't fully understood yet. Many of these crafts don't even resemble traditional spells, but are more like magical abilities above and beyond what normal wizards can do. This gives Glantrian wizards an enormous advantage compared to other high-level wizards. Empress Ariadna in Alphasia might be one of the most powerful wizards in an empire of high-level wizards, but even she just can't summon dragons or elementals with a thought. This access to unheard-of power is what gives Glantrians an edge over other wizards. Having said that, remember these forms of magics aren't perfected at all. They can be incredibly dangerous to use because they aren't fully understood. Because of this, the abilities aren't automatic. They test the wizard's skills and abilities. A wizard that knows of the crafts doesn't automatically know how they work, hence the need for skill checks when the wizard tries to activate the abilities. Each craft also takes a toll on the wizard's body. Even the best wizards don't know how to get around the strain the crafts put on them, resulting in permanent reductions in the wizard's abilities. The more you learn about the crafts, the greater the strain becomes. That's not including the dangers of miscasting a craft ability, which can lead to anything from insomnia to painting an entire city block with your blood. However, Glantrians are probably the least risk-averse wizards in all of D&D history. They will conduct magical experiments that would have Zaz, Tam, and Thay on the hotline to OSHA lickety-split. The crafts are almost a secret club for the most ambitious wizards. It's not that wizards are looking for a shortcut to magical power. The crafts are known to be incredibly dangerous and difficult. But the wizards that have reached high levels of the craft also reach the highest level of Glantrian politics. The crafts serve as a path to political power just as much as they are a conduit of arcane lore. Despite the moniker's secret, the crafts are well known by high-powered wizards. When Alphatia discovered the existence of the crafts, Glantri didn't even try to hide them. Prince d'Amberville even sent the Empress a letter telling her that to get over the fact that Glantri uses far more advanced magical techniques and accepted the increased risks, so she should mind her own business. Where the secret crafts are widely practiced by a large number of nobility, the Radiance is only accessed by the true power players. It's a quick way to shoot up the social status among Glantri's finest, despite the absolute secrecy of the magical source. The Radiance, unlike the crafts, requires a high level in the arcane arts just to cast the spells. The material requirements to handle radiant energy would bankrupt all but the wealthiest adventurers. Because of this, most of the Radiance users are princes of Glantri or other high-ranking nobility. The Radiance mages, due to their secrecy, don't even know the identity of each other, but since they're pushing for the same policies to further their power, they will back each other up in Parliament unknowingly. The Radiance shapes Glantrian politics, but only because the most powerful wizards shape public policy around it, even if the public and lesser wizards know nothing about it. That wraps up the magic of Glantri. Magic dominates the nation's culture, laws, and even economy, so much that it impacts the lives of the Glantrians that can't cast a single spell. Instead of magic being hidden away in libraries and laboratories, in Glantri it's hawked on the street corners like an import watch. Next week we're headed west to one of the biggest sources of bad guys in Mystara, the Hagiarchy of Hool. Time to check in on the Master and see how he's doing. But until next time, remember, try to understand that I'm a magic man. Well, what do I do for an encore after dropping the much-promised Mystara Player's Guide? Aside from trying to figure out how to thank the thousands of people that downloaded the book. And without naming some names, there's a few of you that I am willing to act as an alibi witness at a moment's notice if you need it. But I have to keep up the schedule for Mystara, so you don't have to hunt me down for your weekly fix, so this is going to be the first of two. Today, I'm going to take you down to Glantri City, where the streets are wet and the monsters want tree fitty. Welcome to Mystara. I'm Mr. Welch, and get your gondolas ready. We're headed to one of the most famous D&D cities in the multiverse. Founded in 450 AC by the Flamish, it was originally known as Brazier. Even then, the Flamish understood the magic was unusually powerful in the region, but they didn't know why. The Flames controlled the region by force, despite numerous other settlers arriving in the area and annoying the already isolationist Flames to death. This led to the Battle of Brazier in 745, when the Flames forced the settlers out of the area. However, in 788, they're defeated in the Battle of Braster by Alphatian forces. They remain at war with the Alphatians for another 40 years until Lord Glantri defeats the Alphatian commander and renames the city to Glantri City, establishing the capital of the nation that still bears his name. Physically, the city is located near central Glantri, at the junction of the Vesubia and Isoli rivers, which merge and leave the city as the Red River. Because the city is on a major intersection of large rivers, the city is built on canals instead of streets, much like Venice. Due to the fact that Glantri also sits high in the middle of a mountain range, it is known for its especially cruel winters, and as a result, the rivers freeze up, resulting in the gondolas being mounted on skis and pulled by horses in the winter, or in the case of Jager von Drachenfels, a small white dragon. Never say the man didn't exude style. To keep the canals fresh and to force them to flow into the main channel, the canals are fed by several portals to the elemental plane of water. This keeps the water from stagnating, and there's also a current for the gondolas at all times. The population was 39,200 as of 1000 AC, with a large number of farmers living outside the city proper. It's divided into 7 quarters, because there is no word in English for a 1/7 section that I know of. The business 7th doesn't have the same ring. The quarters include the Citadel, Noble, Business, Entertainer, Port, Middle Class, and West Side, where you have to watch out for the highly choreographed musical numbers frequently put on by the rival gangs there. The northern border is protected by a wall, but rivers run down the length of the southern edges of the city, giving it a triangular shape. The first thing you will notice upon arrival is that all the buildings are quite elaborate and garish. They are masterfully painted, decorated with stained glass, and sporting elegant towers and balconies. The upper class make it a contest to one-up each other in the design of their house, leading to often impossible constructions that are only possible through magic. It is fashionable for the towers to be gilded with various metals, so when the sun dawns in the morning, the city is tinted with all sorts of shades of filtered light. When someone thinks of Glantri City, the first thing they think of is the Citadel Quarter. This is where many of the most famous buildings are located, and due to magical methods, the canals in this district never freeze. It is obviously named for the Citadel of Glantri, home to their military and the second home of Prince Drakenfels, but it is more of a symbolic fortress than an actual one. And while it does have several defensive fortifications, it relies more on the high-powered wizards found within. If this building is under attack, however, then things have already gone very badly for Glantri. The Parliament is known as one of the most beautiful buildings in the city, as well as the source of more arguments than anywhere else in the world. Security is higher here than anywhere else in the nation, though with the number of powerful wizards concentrated in this building, any attack on it would be borderline suicide. Still, with all the internal threats from the disgruntled Glantrians, their laundry list of foreign enemies, and of course the deadliness of their own politics, the guards are there to protect bystanders from the resulting political retaliations more than anything else. The Great School of Magic is possibly the most famous building in all of Glantri, and rightfully so. Restricted to just students and faculty, it is a major source of new spells, magic items, and long-standing grudges. Any noble of any merit in Glantri has graduated from this school, and the application process to join is literally a cutthroat competition. Because of the secrets contained within, as well as the numerous countless children of nobles, the security of the school borders on divine. Granted, the school does often consider its magical secrets far more important than its students. The most dreaded building is the Tower of Sighs. This is the final destination of many of Glantri's enemies. Their secret police and intelligence agencies are based here, and fell creatures guard the air around the tower, with a massive nightwing constantly circling it. If somebody has information that the princes need, they will be sent to the tower and have it extracted through magical means. It's also the final destination of high-powered clerics found in Glantri, who are then slowly fed to black puddings in one of the most horrific executions possible. Glantrians do love their slow and painful deaths. It's considered a national pastime. Moving on to the nobles' quarters, this is where most of the princes keep their residences in the capital. The embassies of Alfheim, Karamikos, and Darkon are located here, the few nations in the known world that are on friendly terms with Glantri. This is not a place for outsiders. If you don't have a reason to be in this quarter, you will be chased out by the constabulary. The district is famous for the wild parties thrown by the various high-ranking nobles, where just getting on the guest list is a high honor. As can be expected, the deadly rivalries of Glantrian politics are on full display here, and often found floating face down in the canals in the morning. The business district laughs at the admonition 5th edition gave about selling magic items. They don't just have magic shops in this quarter, they have magic kiosks. Low-level spells are sold by barkers on street corners. Potions of all sorts are offered for sale in the windows of numerous alchemy shops. Blacksmiths partner with artificers to stock weapon shops of enchanted blades and armor. Exclusive stores sell the rarest of magic items, and auctions for one-of-a-kind items are announced months in advance. Magic is on display in this district. Magic carpets are used to move cargo. The Monster Handlers Union sell any and all conceivable parts of monsters for spell components. The Entertainers' Quarter contains most of the pubs, taverns, and theaters. Here you will find the Metropolitan Theater, known for its traditional plays, as well as ones that encompass large amounts of magical spells. It's famous for using live monsters in their plays, killing the creatures with magic to entertain the audience. Though problems have happened when the monsters don't immediately die. Numerous shops sell minor magic items that are used in entertainment or by street performers. The Port Quarter is the smallest of the districts. It is mostly just warehouses for the riverboats that Glantri relies on. Here's where gondoliers are recruited and trained, though few work in the area. Visitors to Glantri City via the rivers enter in this district, where tax collectors are waiting for them. There is little here for adventurers aside from robbing warehouses, because there's nothing of value unless you really want to hold up a grain silo. The middle-class quarter is the most populous of the city, home to the tenements and many smaller shops. It's also where the Sages League is located, one of the busiest guilds in the city. Here, people will try to get sages to provide them with needed research or information, often waiting days for one to get around to their case. The city library is also found here, filled with more books than the nation has people. Since books can't be taken out of the library, and book theft gets you a visit to the Tower of Sighs, people will spend weeks inside the library researching their projects, hiring people to bring them food. The west side is the poorest region of the city, home to numerous gangs and outlaws. The cause of the poverty is due to the age of the district, and not because of the large influx of Puerto Ricans, as some people have suggested. The district often lacks plumbing, leading it to become quite malodorous. It also has most of the city's manufactories, and is filled to the brim with beggars and thieves who have their own unions. There are numerous gambling halls located here, and are poorly kept secrets. While gambling is legal, it's also heavily taxed. The gambling halls here ignore that part, and operate without authorization. Living in Glantri City is difficult, not just because of the layout of the city, but it's also because it's one of the most expensive cities in the known world. Almost everything is taxed, and tax evasion is a high crime in the nation. Wizards pay taxes based on the spells they know. Fighters pay a tax on every weapon and suit of armor they own. Public speaking requires a license that costs 50 gold pieces a year. Each permit must be carried with you at all times, and getting caught without a permit is a very bad thing. While it won't get you sent to the Tower of Sighs, fines can be punitive, and Glantrians are also quite creative in their punishments. Glantri City is well known for its many festivals, though they get few visitors because of their bad habit of dissecting outsiders. Spring Break is famous for the students using newly learned destructive spells to destroy the winter ice that still clogs the canal. Arcanium is a wizards' convention that draws in many of the most powerful spellcasters in the nation. This is a major event, with every inn in the city booked solid well in advance. The city comes to life during the Arcanium, with vendors openly hawking wares in the streets for weeks while the convention lasts. The gondola games involve waterborne jousting, races, and all sorts of other events that the crowds love and that the gondoliers take way too seriously. The ice games are held on the frozen canals, with all sorts of sports held by students and professional athletes. Alexander Day celebrates the founding of the nation, and in Glantri City is almost a holy day for diviners looking for any portents for the next year. Glantri City is a busy place, despite Glantri's almost pariah status in the known world. It is no place for dwarves, halflings, or clerics, but for visitors from other planes such as genasi, jinn, or adapters, they are treated almost as honored guests. If you need a magic item, chances are it can be found on the streets of the business quarter. If you need a magic item created, there's a wizard in Glantri City willing to take the commission, though divine items might get you thrown into the Tower of Sighs. It's not a healthy place to live. The machinations of the nobles are quite deadly. Between the assassins, thugs, and beggars guild, there's a lot of people here waiting to do harm on people for the right amount of money. Glantri City is considered one of the most original places in all of Dungeons & Dragons. Let's take a host of murderous magical muckety-mucks, stick them in Venice, give them all sorts of tools to research new magics or inflict harm on people they don't like. And then if you're not a wizard, you ain't nothing. Sticking with the most famous cities theme, next up is Athas City, which is totally not ancient Rome at its height. Hope you like movies about gladiators. But until next week, remember, what happens in Glantri City stays in Glantri City. By force if necessary. Bonjour, y'all, and welcome back to Mystara for a dive into one of the oldest dynasties in D&D history, the D'Amberville family. First appearing in Castle Amber, this eccentric clan originated in mythic France before migrating to Glantri, where they gained large amounts of power, made tons of enemies, and a few of those they weren't even related to. While one of the powers of the known world, they are also known for being legion, loony, and often lycanthropic. So who are these mad wizards that are such a major part of Mystara? I'm Mr. Welch, and today we're breaking open the family album. The D'Amberville family, as I mentioned, are not from this world, instead coming through a gate from a plane known as La Terre, better known as Mythic Earth, specifically France. The D'Ambervilles were powerful nobility, but possessed the power of sorcery, which got you burned at the stake in that version of France. The legion of the family was the long-dead Michael D'Amberville, a noble who lacked magic, but encouraged his magic-imbued wife and children to study the forbidden art. When Michael died in combat in some petty war or another, the family realized that without their patriarch they would fall victim to the anti-magic politics of the land. So using these powerful magics, they opened up a gate to Mystara and began evacuating their vassals to the New World. Another group of nobles from the mythic Scotland tried to evacuate their people, but managed to destroy one of the gates in the process, getting a lot of people from both groups killed in the process. Camille is the matron of the family, the widow of Michael, who was born in 665 in La Terre. She was a doting mother who tried to give her children the best life possible, but was unprepared for her husband's untimely death, or the fact her children care more about personal power than family ties. This has partially shattered her mind, along with the fact that she's several hundred years old. She is generally senile, but still possesses incredible magical powers of prophecy. When she gets a vision, she becomes lucid until the prophecy comes true. Her children treat her with care, but most of them consider her a burden on the family now. Marie-Helene is the older sister of Camille and the widow of Michael's younger brother Marcel. She is an oddity for D'Amberville, being a fighter. Marie-Helene and her husband served as the hand of the family, protecting them from outside threats, and using force to convince rivals of the power of the D'Ambervilles. When Etienne announced the journey to Mystara, Marie-Helene and Marcel held a rear guard against the king's armies, while the rest of the family escaped. In the battle, Marcel was killed, while Marie-Helene was badly injured. She has never forgiven Etienne for her husband's death, and she is one of the few in the family to be openly critical of him. Despite her open hostility, Etienne does nothing to harm his aunt. The fact she's honest in her dislike of him is something he considers refreshing. Richard is the eldest child of Michael and Camille, and their biggest disappointment. He lacks magic, and while a great warrior, was passed over for head of the household to his younger brother Etienne. He resented this slight, but has come to realize in Glantri those without magic will always be second-class citizens. He is quick-tempered and rather abrupt, as he does not have time for people that waste his. He was cursed with lycanthropy years ago, but has come to master it through sheer force of will. While his curse is no secret among his family, he doesn't mention it to outsiders either. He is still loyal to his family, though his loyalty to Glantri is often a facade. Isidore is Richard's wife, and wooed him before the family came to Mastara. She was incensed when Richard was passed over in favor of his brother, but has learned to work from behind the scenes. She craves power, but is willing to let her husband be the public face. She's also a werewolf, and uses her position to eliminate other lycanthropes that threaten her power. She isn't trusted by the family, but she loves her husband and knows the family's power is the key to her success, and that ensures her loyalty. Etienne is the most famous member of the D'Ambervilles, and definitely the one with the biggest target on his back. He is the patron of the family and the head of the Great School of Magic. His enemies list is longer than his beard, and not that any of them worry him. His death sparked the events of Castle Amber, yet when he was returned to life, the first thing he did was forgive his traitorous family, though he did put a magical gesh on them to prevent something like that from ever happening again. He is one of the most powerful people in Mastara, something that he keeps to himself. He's often several steps ahead of all of his rivals, and usually knows the plots against him. He lets those plots go forward, more out of curiosity than apathy. When the plots fail, and they always fail, he takes great pleasure in questioning the conspirators against him, and then letting them go with the knowledge of how they are alive only because it amuses him. Genevieve de Sephora is not a D'Amberville by marriage, but has been such a loyal ally to them that she's officially considered part of the family. She was originally betrothed to Etienne, but his obsession with magic ruined their relationship. She is the Comtesse of Touraine, one of the family's oldest holdings. She's loyal to her adopted family, but prefers to act behind the scenes. She's at her strongest when she's underestimated. Catherine is Etienne's much put-upon wife. He married her 40 years before the war in La Terre, and spent little time in her company. He married her on a lark, thinking he needed to settle down. The problem was his activities never let him try that. After she tried to assassinate Etienne in the Castle Amber affair, she was given the position of ambassador to Thay. While she is still married, she remains Etienne's wife out of misguided loyalty. Catherine married up into the D'Amberville family, and she feels that they look down upon her because of her lower-class family. While she was still nobility, her family had nowhere the power her in-laws had. Because of all the tribulations she has suffered, she's become a humorless woman, going through life out of habit more than motivation. Charles is the third child of Michel and Camille, and one of the more eccentric. He was sick most of his childhood, growing up withdrawn and timid. He was highly intelligent, often considered a prodigy by his peers. He doesn't like change, and this is in part that he suffers from overacute sensation. Bright lights, loud noises, strong smells, all of these overwhelm him and can give him panic attacks. He works in Glantri City as a clerk, where he doesn't have to deal with people. Isabelle is Charles's wife. She met him when he tried his hand at adventuring, but after he returned home, he reverted back to his withdrawn ways, and what love they had between them shriveled up. Charles can't be bothered to maintain the relationship, and Isabelle is tired of the insanity of her family's husband. She has started an affair with a Belcadese noble to make her life interesting. She's open about her infidelity, as her husband can't be bothered, and his family rarely remembers her name anyways. Simon is the fourth son of the D'Amberville matron, and he is the ultimate black sheep of the family. Of all the magic-obsessed D'Ambervilles, Simon found religion. This was no secret to his kin, but the knowledge of this was kept from the outside world as clerics were banished from Glantri on pain of death. Because of the power behind his family name, even those who suspected his secret kept it. It was a lot healthier for his foes to keep their mouths shut rather than to disparage the name of a D'Amberville. Simon is a kind and caring man, but during the events in Castle Amber, Etienne's magics drove him insane, and Simon committed truly horrid deeds. While the curse was lifted, Simon remembered all of his misdeeds, and the fact he is capable of pure evil terrifies him. Magdalene is the only daughter of Camille and Michel, and she is renowned for getting what she wants. She does this not by being spoiled. She does exactly what she's told to do, and in the process, she does everything that she wants to do as well. This irks other members of her family, but as long as she accomplishes her initial task, there's little they can do to stop her. She has an independent streak about her. Rather than marry into an arranged marriage, she instead explored Mastara, returning just in time to be trapped in Castle Amber. There she was given the curse of lycanthropy and obtained her trademark white streak of hair. Her force of will is enough for her to keep her true alignment, even while changed. André David is Magdalene's betrothed, and a curiosity in Glantri, being a ranger. He is the younger brother of Isidore, though he has grown distant from his sister. He is the huntsman of Nouveau-Aveyron, appointed by Etienne himself. He hunts down monsters and is tasked with keeping the werewolf population low. Magdalene started their relationship, which was unusual as André David was of low birth with no arcane abilities. The fact he was a ranger was known to her, but she kept his secret. He discovered his fiancée was a werewolf, one of the creatures that he had killed by the dozen, but she wasn't the monster that he had fought so often. With her help, he hunts down the lycanthropes that pose a threat to others, and she gives him leads on the more dangerous ones. Henri is the youngest sibling, born after the death of his father. He grew up being regaled by the tales of his two oldest brothers, and moved to Mastara with his family at an early age. He adapted quickly to life in Bréjour, the land before it was Glantri. Here, as a wizard, he was given the true power that he deserved. As 3 of his siblings had no arcane talent, he quickly moved up in the family's power ranking. He was second in talent only to Etienne, so he tried to remove his brother, which backfired badly in Castle Amber. He was returned to life by Etienne, but he's still resentful and tries to conspire against him despite being magically guessed into loyalty. Henri is known for being ill-tempered, vengeful, and cruel. He has no friends, and he won't hesitate to kill anyone who gets in his way. The fact that he's being kept from the head of the household by the growing number of relatives makes him even more spiteful. Carmina de Belcadiz is Henry's paramour and the twin sister of Blanca de Belcadiz, a high-ranking noble in the Elven province. She is spoiled, bored, and petulant. She was trying to play Henri against her fiancé, but discovered that Henri was far more exciting and ran off to live with him. She's not popular with the d'Amberville family, but as long as Henri keeps showering her with gifts, she doesn't care. She doesn't understand that Henri only keeps her around as long as she's useful. Gaston is the oldest son of Marie-Helene and Marcel. He is an artist first and a wizard second. During his time in Castle Amber, he was stricken with lunacy and amnesia, and he still has the urge to howl at the moon even years after the experience. He is a kind-hearted man, but can lose himself in his current muse. Once he has an eye for a subject, he has a habit of forgetting everything else until he has captured the image on canvas. While he is a noble with a title, he doesn't care about actually ruling. His one and only passion is his art. Guillaume is Gaston's younger brother, and he is everything that his brother isn't. With his wife Jeannette, they are the cultural censors of Nouveau Aveyron, the ones that hunt down and exterminate clerics. Guillaume is forceful and driven. He loves his job as much as he hates clerics. During the 40 Years' War against the Flames, he would spare any clerics that would help the d'Ambervilles against their foes. But once the war was over, he turned on the clerics that he'd given amnesty to. Though built like a warrior, he is a talented and powerful wizard, and he's happy for people to mistake him for a simple thug. Jeannette is Guillaume's wife, a flame of a once powerful family. Her family fell on hard times, and during the war she supported the d'Ambervilles in the war against her own people. She is as fanatical as her husband and takes delight in executing clerics herself. The rest of the family sees her as a tool, but one that serves their interests well. Jean-Louis is the oldest of Etienne, and while lacking his parents' magical talents, he did inherit his father's arrogance and love of antagonism. It is said his tongue is far more dangerous than his blade, which says something considering his fighting abilities. He is utterly loyal to his father, despite the fact being a fighter makes him a second-class citizen in his own family. If he has a weakness, it's his love of boxing. He's one of the biggest organizers of the sports in Glantri, as well as neighboring Darkon. He organizes the matches out of love for the sport. He's already powerful and wealthy. He just enjoys watching people hit each other. He created a small scandal by marrying an Alfheim elf, though since he isn't a wizard, it was quickly forgotten about as he's beneath the notice of his relatives. Tariana is the wife of Jean-Louis. She is a member of Clan Chosum of Alfheim. Her father was human, but she appears to be an elf like her mother. She's a major continuity error, as according to the sources, she appears to be married to Jean-Louis when she was 19, which in elf terms is jailbait. This is caused by a switch between Beckme and 2nd edition, so just add a 0 to that age and remove her braces and pigtails, and everything's fine. Besides, her husband's 194, so that's also a lot less creepy. She is a confident adventurer while in her own element, but in social affairs she prefers to defer to her husband. Her biggest secret is that she's a cleric of terror, which would be a death sentence in Glantri. This is a tightly held secret, not to save her, but because her husband would massacre entire towns to keep her safe. Claude is the younger of Etienne's sons, and he was the white sheep of the family. He became a paladin both out of a calling for justice and to annoy his family. During his time in Castle Amber, he was cursed to have the head of a collie, which earned him the loyalty of a pack of lupin that served as his bodyguards. After his escape from the castle, he went crusading through Moldavia to fight vampires, where he was captured and turned into one against his will. Through his devotion, he has kept his paladin powers, and while he can't directly strike against his vampiric masters, he does his best to sabotage their plans through other means. He can't go to his family for help, partially because he's controlled by his master, and also because paladins don't live very long in Glantri. Finding a cure for him gets the party a very powerful and connected ally. Young Michael is the son of Guillaume and Jeannette, and a disgrace to his family as his chosen profession is that of bard, so the profession of bard fit him well. He is overwhelmed by the personalities in his family. He's almost cowed by the harsh life his parents thrust upon him. When he's not performing, he's timid and shy, averse to danger and risk. He's looking to get out from under his parents' thumbs, and when that day comes, there will be a reckoning. Monique is Richard and Isidore's firstborn, one of the first d'Ambervilles born after the family escaped from Castle Amber. She is a wizard of great potential, and has been taken under the wing of her uncle Etienne for accelerated learning. She's not a werewolf like her parents, though she often becomes manic during a full moon. She is considered the pride of the family, as she is not a disappointment like many of her cousins. She is being groomed to be the future head of the d'Amberville family, meaning she has made an enemy of her uncle Henri without even knowing it. Georgios is Monique's younger brother, and everything she isn't. He can't cast magic, he's terrible at fighting, and the only thing he's good at is dodging blame. He kisses up to whoever will tolerate his presence. He will sell any family secret if the price is right. Because of this, most of his family ignores him, except for his uncle Henri, which pays handsomely for those secrets. Those are the direct members of the d'Amberville family. With the events of Castle Amber, it makes it difficult to keep track of actual ages, as many of them spent centuries locked in time. The d'Ambervilles have an unnaturally long life as it is. But when they are talked about in the various books, it becomes hard to keep track of them. They're a large family. I didn't even talk about the dozens of minor nobles and assistants they had, as this video was starting to run long. But if you need a villain, an ally, or just somebody strange for the party to encounter, you can't go wrong with the d'Ambervilles. Next week is a look at one of the biggest villains in Mystara, Sin the Night Dragon, or what happens when you drop every other storyline to concentrate on a new idea. Until then, vive la différence! Welcome to Mystara, as we're headed back to Glantri, again. It's arguably the most recognized nation in the setting, except possibly for Karamikos. It's well written, hilariously dysfunctional, and how a magocracy would probably play out in real life. Instead of working together, it's everyone for themselves. Most of the nation are second-class citizens, with no chance of ever rising in status. As you can expect, this doesn't sit well with several members of the populace. That brings us to today's subject, the underground factions of Glantri. I'm Mr. Welch. It's time to ask, what have the Glantrians ever done for us? Glantri has a large number of factions, from legal to illegal, to openly recognized to completely secret. There are guilds, terrorist groups, and or freedom fighters, depending on your point of view, lobbyists, criminal syndicates, and labor unions, and almost all of them charge a membership fee. Today we're looking at the illegal ones, as it would take over an hour to cover all of the guilds. Glantrians love their factionalism. It's one of their favorite pastimes. So taking them on in order as they appear in the book, let's go! The Beggars' Court is a guild located in Glantri of not just beggars, but anyone maimed or cursed by the numerous wizards. Begging for a living isn't enough to join the Beggars' Court. No, you also must be ugly as sin. Attempting to join the Beggars' Court and not have some sort of disfiguring ailment results in you being beaten until you do have a disfiguring ailment. Then you're allowed to join. They're led by Radipus, a former aide to one of the princes who was tortured for an attempted theft. If someone harms a beggar, the court will pay a visit to the offender and explain to him in the most brutal fashion that their members are not to be harassed. Their chief opposition is the town guard, as well as the numerous magical experiments found in the sewers of Glantri City. To join, you just have to be ugly as sin, and it does cost 1 ducat a month in dues, which is the Glantrian gold piece. The Moldovan Liberation Organization is a terrorist organization that only operates in the territory that they take their name from. They are unknown outside the principality, and their targets are the Moldovan nobility. The BLO is rumored to be headquartered in the town of Rimskarad, but they strike all over the region. They're careful with their targets. No commoners have ever been harmed by the BLO unless they were attempting to protect a noble. As you can expect, they are wanted all over Moldavia, but the other principalities barely know of them. Despite the fact that they are not wanted in any of the other principalities, the BLO has never once been found in any of them. The reality is that the nobles of Moldavia are vampires, under the direct control of Prince Morphael. One of his laws to the other vampiric nobility is they can't make vampires of commoners. The BLO is comprised of vampiric commoners, who are the results of nobles breaking that law. The BLO isn't attacking nobles out of revenge or altruism. They want to be in charge, and the only way they can take control of Moldavia is to kill the vampires already in charge. You can see the conflict. There's no entry fee, but they do charge 50 ducats a month to stay a member. The Canine Protection Society is mostly found in the Principality of New Aveyron, though they have been active all over the nation. They're a group of lycanthropes that are tired of being treated like mass-murdering psychopaths. Sure, some of them are, but they don't want to be treated as such. Their grand plan is to infect a lot of people with lycanthropy regardless of type, then petition for a new principality for the large number of were-creatures in the nation. They hold a grudge over being purged several times in the past, because werewolves and all that. And due to this, they have a kinship for dwarves and halflings, who also got purged around the same time. Clerics can still get eaten by a black pudding for all they care. As a rule, the CPS will not attack dwarves or halflings, something that is appreciated by the hen and dwarven groups looking to bring down Glantri. The dwarves still don't want the werewolves coming for a visit, but they will gladly pay them to bring down the hated mages. It costs 180 ducats to join, and 5 ducats a month to stay joined. Followers of the Claymore are a partisan group founded in Clantir, comprised of fighters and other allies that want to tear the wizards from their perch, starting with House Crownguard. The Followers are one of the more active and successful underground organizations, as they've infiltrated the military at most levels. They're found in border regions manning the fortifications, and their interference with expansion into those areas is one of the reasons why no prince has been named to the Sablestone region. They have a lot of support outside the nation. Countries that hate Glantri will tolerate the Followers because of similar motivations. The princes have the hardest time rooting out the Followers because they're so ingrained in the Glantrian military. Joining the Followers requires an act of bravery, and they have no monthly fees. The Elven Liberation Front, not to be confused with the Liberation Front of Elves or the Elven Popular Liberation Front, splitters. This group is located entirely in Erewhon and wants nothing less than independence for the Principality. While they have a lot of supporters, their anti-elf tactics against visitors and neighbors means they're condemned by Princess Carolatina. They are known to receive both funding and material support from allies in Alfheim. They are enemies of Clan Belkades, and the feeling is mutual. While condemned by Erewhon's leadership, Elf has a history of taking violent action against Carlatina's enemies at convenient times. It costs 140 ducats to join Elf, and 5 ducats a month to stay a member. The Free Fundamentalist Farmers are found in the unorganized regions of Glantri and work to prevent acts of enfeoffment from being passed so they don't have their taxes raised. They will sabotage efforts by the nobility to organize settlements. They create food shortages and, in extreme case, organize riots. They despise the large landowners that come and claim the best farming lands when a new prince is named. The FFF's members tend to be sustenance farmers, but coordinate together to provide a united front. They're one of the few factions that will openly fight against the nobility due to their remote location and the need for a proper militia on the frontier. To join, it costs a single ducat, and monthly dues is just a copper piece. The Followers of Fire are an enigmatic terrorist group that strikes all over Glantri, but seemingly without a pattern. The true nature of the group is a mystery. Their only tactic is arcane arson. All members of the FOF are from Berghoven, but they don't restrict their targets to outsiders. They don't take credit for their actions, they've never released any ultimatums, and their targets have little in common. Every once in a while, they burn someone on a public street alive. The only thing linking the attacks is it was done by a redhead, and it always involves fire. The group is secretly run by Prince Vlarduin, who uses the loosely organized mages to assassinate targets that would increase instability in other principalities in an attempt to reduce the powers of the other princes, allowing the Flemish to regain control over Glantri. Unlike other groups, they have no prerequisites to join or any dues at all. The Free Anachronic Society of Alban, or FASA, is devoted to destroying any machinery created without the use of magic. Giant stompy robots seem to be their first target for some reason. Any large device that is actual machinery rather than magitech is slated for destruction if they discover that it wasn't created by wizards. As the name indicates, the group is located entirely in Alban, though they will venture out if a particular device in another part of the nation is gaining attention. They don't restrict their actions to just destroying the device. They will also target the inventor and any and all blueprints and plans as well. If they can't destroy the device because it is too well protected or the inventor has political connections, they will pursue legal action against it. Typically, this means they will try to get the device labeled as dangerous or untested and use regulations or other legal interference to make sure the invention is never mass-produced or released to the public. It costs 340 ducats to join FASA and 50 ducats a month to stay a member. The Free Armed Elven Resistance Youth, or FARY, is both a very tortured acronym as well as the Belkades' answer to Elf. They are waging a shadow war against the forces of Elf and against the Erewhon elves as a whole. They will openly kidnap, kill, or assault Erewhon elves to let them know their place in Glantrian society. Their open goal is the unification of the Elven principalities under the control of Princess Carnelia. They are much more open than Elf, and as a result are illegal across the nation, though they can operate freely in Belkades. It costs 150 ducats to join, and 25 ducats a month to stay a member. The People's Spellcasters Company are a loose organized group of unlicensed wizards who focus on stealing new spells from the right proper tax-paying spellcasters and passing the spells around in open violation of all trademark and copyright laws. These spellcasters are often foreigners who refuse to pay the steep spellcasting taxes, or just Glantrians who think they're being overtaxed. Members of the PSC will offer low-costing spells, but will also steal spellbooks and scrolls when they can. This has made them an enemy of the Fellowship of the Pouch, as well as one of the more hated groups in Glantri City. Joining the PSC costs 50 ducats and 12 ducats a month to stay a member. The Fellowship of the Pouch is the Thieves Guild, operating mainly around Glantri City. They're unusual for a Thieves Guild because they're government regulated. They're all robbers and burglars, but they are robbers and burglars with a license. The Wizards of Glantri need rogues and second storymen for their own purposes, and are willing to license the Fellowship for their services. As long as the Fellowship has a license for a job, the job is legal. Getting caught is still bad, but it's tolerated, and the punishment for getting caught on a licensed job is minimal. Unlicensed work is still illegal and subject to all sorts of nasty punishments, but still rather common. The Fellowship has a lot of enemies with other similar organizations, but strangely enough, friendly with most governmental agencies. The Fellowship dues are 50 ducats to join and 12 ducats a month. The Sisters of the Private Houses is the organization that represents women of negotiable affection, or the Prostitutes Guild. They specialize in physical pleasure, escort services, and heap loads of blackmail. That last one is one of the reasons why they are well supported in Parliament, as no one dares cross them. They make as much money selling blackmail material as they do in the carnal services they provide. Their threat of boycott is enough of a concern that any actions against them by the authorities are suppressed. As long as they don't get too greedy with the blackmail, they're left to their own devices. It's free to join, and only 2 ducats a month for membership. The 10,000 Fists of the Khan is possibly the most illegal organization in all of Glantri. This is a group of clerics, typically from Ethengar, who specialize in spreading the word of the immortals across Glantri. As the penalty for proselytizing is death, it's a high-risk commitment to the cons. They are one of the only foreign groups active in Glantri, and, ironically enough, hunted by the Glantrian internal security religiously. The biggest problem finding them is they can easily blend in with the commoners of House Krondahar, making tracking the clerics difficult. One problem the Inquisitors have is very few are familiar with clerical magic and are unprepared for the higher-level members of the Fists. Being a Fist is a high-risk mission. On average, about one cell a year is utterly discovered and destroyed. That doesn't stop them from coming, or paying 75 ducats a month to be a member, either. The Thug Guild is similar to the Fellowship of the Pouch or the Sisters of the Private House, in that they are an illegal operation that is allowed to exist because their services are needed by the people who are charged with eliminating them. This guild handles assassinations, assaults, and the occasional bit of espionage and kidnapping. As long as the member is in good standing and doing approved business, they get a minimal sentence if caught, assuming their target doesn't kill them in self-defense. But even if the guild member is caught, there's no hard feelings, as that member might be the next one hired by the target for his next job. Being a thug in good standing in Glantri costs 75 ducats to join and 12 ducats a month to keep the membership updated. Those are the illegal or semi-illegal factions in Glantri. There's more, but those are the most famous. Every principality is going to have at least one group devoted to either subverting it or assisting it. These groups give the powers that be a third party to do their nasty business, and such is the nature of Glantri that operatives working in the shadows are often excused because the targeted party uses the exact same group for the exact same reason. If you make the people that do your dirty work angry, then you have to do your own dirty work. And who's got time for that? Next week, I'm finally looking at a topic that has bugged me for a while. A long while. Ispia, the theoretical Thaïtian province that was the source of the population of the Savage Coast. A region that appears nowhere in any book, on any map, or was even previously mentioned before 2nd edition. One of the biggest continuity problems in all of Mystara. And it's about time we put Ispia on the map. Somewhere. Anywhere. I'm not picky. But until next week, that's a nice great school of magic you got there. Hate to see anything happen to it. Welcome to Mystara for an overdue video. Due to a lot of research involved, compounded by the Vaults of Pandius being down for the latter part of January. Today we're looking at the Brotherhood of the Radiance, the Brotherhood of Rad, the most exclusive and powerful secret society in Glantri, if not the known world. They control the fate of the magocracy behind the scenes and are unknown even to each other. Led by everybody's favorite French immortal, they want to use the nucleus of the spheres and the sphere of energy to increase their power. I'm Mr. Welch, and prepare to get totally tubular. The Brotherhood of the Radiance appears in the long list of societies in the Glantri Gazetteer. Despite its small entry in that section, it had the most significant impact of all of them. Despite its importance, it's also the smallest of all the societies, with only 7 members. They're so secretive that they never even meet in person, only using magically projected images. They don't even know the identities of their fellow members, going with made-up nicknames like Brother Rad, Brother Gnarly, and Brother Bodacious. Their stated goal is to prevent the use of the Radiance by those who can't handle its powers, as well as to keep the knowledge of the magic hidden from other wizards. They claim to support anyone worthy of wielding the secrets of their group, but the number of people on that list is short. Who am I kidding? That list is blank. The members of the group include 3 princes, 1 future prince, 1 would-be future prince, the grandson of a prince, and a marquis who not only discovered the Radiance, but managed to stay alive and contact the others, and convince them that they needed to join their little fraternity. No small task. They are all responsible for keeping track of those with even the remotest knowledge of the Radiance. If said person is considered a threat to them, that person will be eliminated. While this has to be done discreetly, it's usually not a problem considering the power level of the Brotherhood, what with 3 princes and all being members. Thankfully for the Shadow Elves, the Brotherhood has no idea of their existence. To qualify for membership, the would-be member needs to learn at least 1 Radiant spell and then build a magical receptacle to contain the nucleus of the sphere's powers. Once accomplished, the mage will then be contacted by the Brotherhood if deemed worthy. Being a member does have its benefits, as society will fast-track members unaware of their true identity. The source of the Radiance is directly under Glantri City. The closer your receptacle is physically, the more power you can absorb. With 3 of the 7 members already princes, they have their receptacles in the capital already. Moving closer than you are allowed by Glantrian law is strictly forbidden, and the Brotherhood will remove offending members. Not that this has ever happened. It's the benefits of a small membership. If the wizard is accepted, they will be given a time and a place to communicate with the others. This is always done remotely. Officially, no one knows the identity of the others, but with one of the members being an immortal, that rule doesn't apply evenly. On the first meeting, the new member will be able to choose their name and be allowed to ask any questions about the true power of the Radiance. The more the wizard already knows about the Radiance, the more likely they're going to be approved. The most essential part of studying the Radiance before you remember is discretion. The first rule of the Brotherhood of the Radiance is you do not talk about the Brotherhood of the Radiance. The 17th rule of the Brotherhood of the Radiance is you do not talk about the Brotherhood of the Radiance. You aren't long for the world if you are particularly vocal in your research. It is best if the applicant discovers the Brotherhood rather than they notice him researching the energy. The other reason to be discreet is there are several other wizards also researching the Radiance, and they would be thrilled to pick your brain for what you know, with dissecting tools if necessary. This isn't Hogwarts, this is Glantri. Wizards do not share information. No one will correct your pronunciation of summon Radiance. They will gag you with a Bohemian ear spoon and steal your notes. Unless they're good aligned, in which case they will just use memory-modifying spells and leave you physically unharmed as they steal your notes. Researching the magical energy that can fast-track your path to immortality is a full-contact sport in Glantri. What does it take to be a member of this esteemed yet rather murdery fraternity? First, you have to be Glantrian. That should go without saying, but a few people from other nations, particularly Alphatia, have studied the Radiance. If their research was discovered, the Brotherhood would ensure that the upstart's death would serve as both an example and a test subject. The secret of the Radiance is not to be shared with outsiders. The second requirement is the wizard has to be at least name level. This isn't out of respect or anything similar, but you have to be able to cast Radiant spells to join, and the lowest level spells are all available at 5th level, so you have to be a 9th level wizard to cast them. Then you have to build the receptacle, which isn't cheap. There's a reason why all the members are nobility. Because all wizards are nobles in Glantri, of course. If a filthy commoner tried to learn about the Radiance, they would be rightly vaporized for their insolence. Once you've done all that, you have to start researching more spells. The information on the Radiance naturally is almost impossible to find, and the Brotherhood does its best to keep it that way. To showcase the kind of person that they are looking for, if you want to use the Radiance to improve the lives of those around you, you get targeted for removal. If you want to use it to gain immortality and increase your power, welcome to the club. Even the one guy in the Brotherhood who is lawful good follows those rules. The Radiance is for the few, never for the many. They don't know the nucleus of the spheres is a finite commodity. They just don't like to share unless necessary. The 7 members of the Brotherhood are the Princes Etienne d'Amberville, Brannert MacGregor, Vansary Vlardwin, the future Prince Harold of Haskins, MacGregor's grandson Angus, and his son-in-law Alastair McAllister, and the Belcadese noble Don Fernando de Casanegra. Casanegra is an elf, the only non-human to join the Brotherhood. Well, Brannert isn't exactly human anymore, but he was at some point in his dark life. Of the members, Harold and McAllister have suffered greatly from the nucleus's withering effect, and several parts of their body have rotted away because of the Radiance use. Brannert has used so much that his entire body has withered to the point of turning him into a Radiance Lich, the only creature of his type. Etienne is secretly an immortal, but he maintains membership to try and understand the nucleus and its powers. He is proof that the Radiance can be used to gain immortality, but he never explains the cost and the fact that other immortals will look at you as a cheater if you succeed. The member that stands out more than any other is Angus MacGregor. While other members are all elders, Angus is just 10, still a child. He's just as capable as the others, though at a much lower level, being only level 12 compared to the princes being level 28 and higher. Oddly enough, despite his vast age differences, he's only a level below his uncle Alastair. The others don't care that Angus is a child. Even his family members don't comprehend just how fast-tracked this kid is when it comes to magical powers. Granted, the other members of the Brotherhood also don't realize that one of their members can walk into the arcade part of Chuck E. Cheese without raising an eyebrow. Angus is still a ways from gaining the more powerful Radiant spells, but it's only a matter of time. Plus, he can always raid his grandfather's library if necessary. It's unknown how Brannert would react if he knew his grandson was a member of the Brotherhood. The prince is grooming Angus to replace him once he achieves immortality. Then again, Brannett's a rather evil guy and might think Angus is angling to replace him early, so he needs to go. Harold is the friendliest member of the group and the only good-aligned one on top of it. He's probably the friendliest wizard in Glantri, which makes you wonder how he stayed alive for so long. The fact that he's much more powerful than his sponsor, Prince di Malapietra, has something to do with it. But he's also relatively isolated in his duchy and has no enemies. This gives him plenty of time to research the Radiance. While he's not one to automatically call for the death of anybody who hears a rumor about the nucleus, he understands the dangers the Radiance possesses, especially in the hands of people who don't comprehend its properties. He hasn't participated in assassinating people nosing around looking for Radiance lore, but he has voted to approve it. There's not much lore on Casanegra. He's not mentioned in any detail in the Gazetteer, and he gets 2 lines of passing mention in the Glantri box set. He's a level 9 elf who studies the Radiance for purely scholarly reasons. He's one of the more adamant about controlling who has access to the information behind the magic, as he understands better than most of the others what happens if the magic is overused. Past that, he's a blank slate. He's loyal to his princess and spends all of his time looking at the true nature of the magical energy that they're trying to harness. He's one of the more reasonable members, but won't hesitate to eliminate any threat to the Brotherhood. There's even less to know about McAllister. He's married to the daughter of Prince McGregor, he suffers badly from Radiance burns, and he's redoubling his effort to try to learn the higher spells. If any of them were to try to cast the spell for immortality and fail, it would probably be McAllister. If you're looking for information in print on the Brotherhood, don't bother with the box set. It removed vast chunks of lore to make room for all the magic spells. It was made by Monty Cook, after all. It says that in the future, the Brotherhood is reduced to 4 members, with Etienne missing and Vlardoin dead. It drops McAllister from the membership list without any explanation, and he's still alive in Glantri at this point. It does mention that the Brotherhood always meets through magical conference calls at every equinox and solstice, if nothing else, to prove that they're not dead. However, the information in that book is primarily cut and pasted from the original. It's not fully updated from the time skip, as it mentions Etienne knows the identities of all the members, and he's supposed to be dead at this point in the timeline. 5 people are currently aware of the Radiance and are looking for more information on it, with varying degrees of success. The first is Prince Andir Voluspen, who knows the Radiance but hasn't discovered any relevant spells. He will stop at nothing to acquire the information, and once he has that, nothing will keep him from joining the Brotherhood. There's 3 princes on it already, nobody will notice a 4th. Don Hippolito de Belcadiz has almost all the spells needed to start channeling the Radiance, though he will probably not survive long enough to join. Casa Negra knows of Hippolito's attempts and finds the elf loathsome and corrupt. The Don will likely find himself on the wrong end of a glowing green death spell. Rejladon Virayana is the youngest son of Prince Jarek and discovered a single spell regarding the Radiance. Before he could continue his research, an Alphatian wizard magically imprisoned him, wanting that spell for himself. Now he's trapped in a 5-mile-long demiplane, being hunted by an Athak, until he gives up what she wants. Lady Cenaria Verlian is the woman who is responsible for the torture of Rejladon. She is a Flemish mage of some power who has been looking for Radiance lore for a good chunk of her life, only for some young wizard to stumble across the spell, almost on accident. She doesn't consider this fair, so she will force the man to give him what she wants, and then dispose of him. If any of the Brotherhood discovers this, she will find herself disappearing instead. Unfortunately for Rejladon, his fate is no concern to them. Arbana Jerbat knows of the Radiance, but has to tread carefully, as she's an Alphatian spy tasked with discovering secret Glantrian magic. If she gets discovered, all of the Brotherhood will stop at nothing to end her before she can report back to the Empress. That's the Brotherhood of the Radiance. I had to scour the vaults for much of the knowledge, which took over a week because of the online issues. They aren't numerous, they aren't nice. They will end you to protect their knowledge. Be warned. Next up are the clan leaders of Alfheim, both the clan masters and the tree keepers. Until then, be excellent to everyone. The secret to petting zoos is herbivores. It doesn't matter how badly those kids want to pet that cuddly little displacer cub, it's going to get bitey. That's why my group tends to feed them to their blink puppies. Can you blame them? Look at that good boy, just waiting for his displacer beast num-nums. I don't care how cute you want to draw the displacer beasts. I will always be Team Blink Dog. That bit of wisdom leads us to today's topic, the Valley of Wolves, the future principality of Morlaix. This slice of Glantri holds the largest population of wolves, dire wolves, and werewolves in all of Mystara. Led by a rather quirky member of the Averon family, it's a nice place to visit, but you wouldn't want to live there. At least not overnight. On second thought, maybe try a vacation in lovely sunny Crown Guard instead. I'm Mr. Welch, and remember,
there is no spoon.
The Valley of Wolves, aka La Vallée de Loup, aka the Barony of Morlaix, is located in the northern section of New Averon, at least until it becomes its own principality shortly after the events of the war with Alphatia. Physically, it's located in the northern part of the Isolde Valley, between the Mount des Ayres and Les Montagnes Noires mountains. Pardon my French, but as most locations are taken directly from the language, and my pronunciations tend to be influenced by the local dialects here. The valley sits 5,000 feet above sea level and features the Lac des Ayres fed by the River des Enfers. It has a mild climate in the summer and experiences heavy rain in the spring and fall. In the winter, expect extreme cold. Fog is constant year-round, but it's worse in the summer months. So not exactly a vacation spot. Technically, the valley is under the rule of the Vicomtesse Dame Diane. She's an adequate ruler, more content with her studies and projects than concerned with the day-to-day happenings. The person at the center of this entire video, of course, is Baron Malachi du Marais, the White Wolf. He's an albino werewolf who wishes to create a safe haven for his fellow werewolf types. But his tiny little barony isn't big enough to accomplish that. For that reason, he needs to take Dame Diane's position. The issue is that titles in Glantri aren't hereditary. Wizards often move up in rank as more powerful ones die, so if the Vicomtesse gets torn apart by a pack of foul-tempered dire chihuahuas, someone else will just move in and become the new Vicomtesse. Malachi would have a chance to take her place, but there are more senior nobles with a better chance and bigger sponsors. In canon, he solves this problem through political marriage. Both of them are alchemists, and that's the only thing they have in common. They're a terrible match. When Malachi becomes the Prince of Morlaix-Malembois, it puts an even greater strain on their relationship. She's a vain woman, but not to the point of neglecting her people. She is several decades older than him, which causes even more problems in their marriage. Malachi has little need for his wife outside her title, so he tends to ignore her and let her do what she wants while he creates his werewolf utopia. The Baron prefers the company of his true love, Suzanne, who lives with him under the guise of his sister. You can already think of all the ways that this lie is going to go very wrong. Malachi is a rare, good-aligned werewolf, being chaotic good in nature. He was originally more chaotic neutral, but years of trying to find a home for his kin softened his views on people and society. Werewolves were illegal throughout Glantri since the beginning of the nation, though the fact that Nouvelle Aveyron sheltered a large number of them was no secret. Malachi wanted a place where they could walk openly without fear of being hunted. That motivated him to take control of the Valley of Wolves. He's best known because of his albino status. He even wears dark glasses in his human form to protect his eyes. He tries to keep the status as a werewolf secret, but it's one of the worst kept secrets in Glantri. Most princes are aware of his status, they just don't care. Some even appreciate that all the werewolves in their region moved to his. The current population of the valley is approximately 5,000 people. Despite its size, it's not a region friendly to habitation. Many wild animals, such as mountain goats, deer, and sheep, roam freely, but that also includes wolves of all types. Killing wolves is illegal in Morlaix, and in some parts of the barony, fully half the population are werewolves. This is causing all sorts of problems that the Baron is struggling with. Food is a significant issue in the region, as farming isn't ideal high in the mountains. Werewolves aren't exactly known for their vegan lifestyle either, meaning Malachi has to keep restocking the wild game. Otherwise, the werewolves might start hunting more bipedal varieties of meat. His second issue is that by making it known that lycanthropes are welcome in his territory, the valley is experiencing a population boom as shifters from across the nation are flocking to the future principality. This also draws werewolf hunters to its borders in large numbers. Malachi is trying to remove the population that opposes the large number of lycanthropes immigrating to the region, but without violence. He actively encourages those with anti-werewolf sentiments to live elsewhere before there's an incident. The werewolf hunters are another matter, as they are there to cause said incident, and can't be removed short of violence. The prince is even hunted by his own personal nemesis, a hunter who has stalked him before they left France. If she succeeds in slaying him, the entire barony will erupt into anarchy, as he is the stabilizing force. His last problem is that werewolves are chaotic creatures, and most of them are evil to boot. He's inviting them into his barony by the score, and they're taking him up on his offer. Every full moon, you've got a domain filled with hungry lycanthropes, and most of them aren't friendly types. Malachi has his own personal retinue of werewolves he can trust to handle the more hostile variety of his kin. He's even got different levels of his personal guard to handle the tougher wolf boys that have settled in his valley. Since technically there isn't a region of Glantri with thousands of werewolves living in open defiance of parliamentary law, they have to practice a degree of discretion. Wild werewolves running rampant and slaughtering the common folk once a month is something that just will not abide. The next 5 years, canonically, is one hell of a ride. Dumouriez does his best to keep the status quo while maneuvering for increased power, but a series of unexpected events both hamper and help him. First, due to a rise in disease or undead, depending on the timeline, the Parliament votes to allow foreign clerics to deal with the situation. Dumouriez votes against this as clerics can cure lycanthropy, reducing his power. Despite his objections, the measure passes and the clerics start working their way to the barony. Next, a large deposit of silver is found in Malembois, increasing the entire region's status and wealth, as well as making it rather unhealthy for werewolves for obvious reasons. This is a huge threat, not just because of the increased threat the mineral poses to Dumouriez. It enhances the power and prestige of Dame Diane, meaning any favors Malachi tries to acquire from her has just become more expensive. 2 years later, gold is found in Les Montagnes Noires, which creates a massive migration to the region. This overtaxes the local resources, brings in a large amount of regular non-werewolf people, and deprives the Baron of a much-needed source of income to the miners that he wanted to hoard for himself. However, the increased population does provide an unexpected bonus after Dumouriez marries Dame Diane. In 1005, Parliament decides to elevate the entire region to a principality, and Malachi Dumouriez is awarded the position with the help of his allies in Nouveau Aveyron and several other regions. Now he has the opportunity to turn the area into a lycanthropic paradise, though he will have to wait until the ban on werewolves is lifted. When that finally is, that creates even more problems for the new prince. Because of the precarious balancing act that the werewolf population has in the valley, Dumouriez has given them a strict set of rules to prevent them from running wild and drawing the attention of the werewolf hunters or others hostile to their existence. This isn't always well received by the chaotic lycanthropes, but it is for their own good. The first law is loyalty to the pack. Anybody who harms a packmate is hunted down and killed, no exceptions. The second law prevents hunting in the villages. Even if done during a frenzy, you are expected to do your hunting in the wilderness. Breaking this law results in a fine, and refusal to pay results in banishment. Passing on the curse of lycanthropy to anyone outside your immediate family is forbidden and punishable by a fine. Keeping the number of werewolves balanced is important, lest they draw unwanted attention. Lastly, it is essential to retain control. Young werewolves will be given a mentor during full moons to help with their transformation. Those who refuse will be banished. The largest town in the valley is Lukemont, with a population of just over 1,000 citizens. Of these, well more than half are werewolves. The non-werewolf population is very aware of this. There is no hiding the number of lycanthropes in such a small area. That being said, the population has learned to ignore the fact that most of their neighbors hulk out every full moon, as people who have a problem with them will be deported or worse, just disappear. The wolf law protects the regular people, and the more powerful werewolves protect the villagers from their younger kin during the time of change. Still, they are there because Dumouriez wills it, and he would have them removed if he wanted to. There is an uneasy peace in Lukemont, but both sides have been willing to keep it so far. The town is typical of settlements in the area. Prices are higher because of the remoteness of the region. Expect to pay 50% more for everything except for food and lumber products. Obviously, there is no clerical magic, so things like disease and injury take their toll. If a neighbor seems to be a fast healer, no matter the wound, there's a good chance they're a werewolf. The town is very insular. Visitors can expect stares wherever they go. People aren't hostile, but they will know if you aren't one of them. They won't shun you. You can still buy food, goods, and similar, but don't expect anybody to engage you in conversation if you stop by the Taverne des Loups Sauvages for a pint. Visitors will quickly notice there are only humans in this village, not a single elf or more exotic race. Of course, there's no dwarves or halflings, and this is the one place you don't want to play a lupin. There's a lot of other points of interest in the valley, including a lot of haunted locales. Mermaison Abandonnée is a haunted mansion found in the rolling foothills. Tour de Magibel is another supposedly abandoned tower, but locals swear they can see lights at night. Every attempt to enter the building has failed, and explorers have stopped trying to gain entry years ago. The Tour d'Atal is a home to a single astronomer found in the mountains, but he doesn't care for visitors unless they come for the stars. There is also the Tour de Salons, home to a reclusive mage who doesn't open his door to anyone, causing the locals to speculate wildly about what exactly is he researching there. The Valley of Wolves was made for a Night Howler campaign if it wasn't obvious enough. It has the majority of non-evil aligned werewolves and a fair chunk of the evil ones. It's not a place the characters will be familiar with. Everywhere they go, they will be treated as outsiders. The biggest thing to take away from this region is that the werewolves aren't the monsters here. They can be, but that's determined individually. Characters just can't start slaughtering lycanthropes as soon as they arrive, because that gets them dogpiled by the entire village. It's meant to be a mystery, one that the townsfolk will help as little as possible to aid in. Make sure in no uncertain terms that the party will get no help and will not be wanted once they cross into the valley. That's what makes it interesting. Next week we are headed to the start of a month of deep dives with a draconic cluster, 4 interlocked planes where the immortals of dragonkind abide. Until then, bow wow wow yippee-o yippee-yay.